Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our YouTube live stream. Welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Mike, and tonight it's May 15. It's Friday. We would be having a different discussion. And before anything else, let me check ang ating mga kababayan kung nandyan na sila. Sige, sa ating live stream ngayong gabi. So we have some friends na nasa live stream sa YouTube natin ngayong gabi. And ayan, si Georgie. Hi, Georgie. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us tonight sa ating YouTube live stream. Our topic tonight is all about far away from home, which most of our OFWs or our overseas Filipino workers or migrant workers can relate to our topic tonight. And before ko i-introduce ang ating guest, let me greet some of our viewers tonight, to all our friends watching us from all over the world. So ayan, may mga friends po tayo na nasa Saudi Arabia. Meron po tayong friends na nanonood from Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Philippines, Hong Kong. O, ang dami na sa iba't ibang lugar pa. And good evening din, Emerly, sa inyo. And Maro, maraming salamat. Lenny, and maraming salamat din sa inyong lahat. And please, if you have question tonight sa ating topic at sa ating guest, feel free. I-chat nyo lang po sa amin at sasagutin po ng ating guest tonight. And ayan, napaka-exciting ngayon. Friday night, kasama nyo kami ngayong gabi. Pwede bang magtanong? O yan, sige, basta magtanong lang po kayo sa ating chat. At suportahan din po natin si Miss Georgie. So ayan, si Miss Georgie na nandito. Good evening, sabi ni Anna Marie. So Anna Marie, to our guest na nakikinig ngayon, welcome to our handsome guest daw, sabi ng ating. Hindi tayo naiintindihan. Probably I would ask our guest tonight if marunong siyang mag-Filipino or mag-Tagalog. Okay? So ayan. Jocelyn, good evening. So without any further ado, our topic tonight is all about, as I have mentioned, is far away from home. How many of you, mga kababayan here in Hong Kong, when was the last time that you went home? I know that during this current situation, most of us cannot leave Hong Kong. We cannot go back to our home country. Probably soon we can. And aside from that, how many of you missed your family, your kids, your parents, your partner, or your loved ones? And when was the last time that you spoke with them? Kailan kayo huling nakipag-usap sa inyong loved ones? And also, will you sacrifice your happiness, your family, for the sake of your education or for the sake of your career? So ito po yung pag-uusapan natin ngayong gabi, and we have invited a very close friend of mine, and let me give you a brief introduction sa kanya. I didn't ask how to pronounce his name properly because his name, probably I'll ask later because I call him Jacob. But anyway, he graduated from the University of Warwick with the Bachelor of Laws, uh, having been offered a training contract with a global law firm in London. And so ang dami niya. And then having first spent 6 weeks doing voluntary work in a local secondary school in Tanzania in teaching English. Then he decided to move to Hong Kong to pursue a Master of Laws degree. And then he graduated from the University of Hong Kong with distinction, and where he led workshop in his spare time aimed at empowering domestic workers in the region. And so ang haba ng kanyang profile. Currently, he is a corporate lawyer working in the technology side, media, telecoms sector, who has lived and worked in London, Hong Kong, and Abu Dhabi before settling sa Singapore. Okay? So nasa Singapore po siya ngayon. And he's a friend of mine for almost 6 years. Sabi niya, kasi hindi na matandaan ang year na yon. But anyway, without any further ado, please welcome our guest for tonight, Mr. Jakub Brecka. Am I right? Hi, Jacob. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Mike. It's nice to reconnect. It's nice to see you, and yeah, thanks for everyone for giving up their Friday evening slots to listen to this. It's exciting.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I noticed the board at your back. Hi.
Yeah, can you read it?
Yeah. Hi to all domestic workers. So ayan. Sabi ni Jacob, hi to all domestic workers. By the way, I forgot, how do I pronounce your name properly? Because I usually call you Jacob, but you told me before it's not Jacob, the way I pronounce it, right?
No, I mean, if you want to pronounce it the way it's pronounced from my where I'm from in Slovakia, it would be Jakub.
Jakub.
Yeah. But in English and in the English-speaking world, I introduce myself as Jacob. Yeah, it's easier.
Okay. And then you mentioned you grew up and raised in Slovakia, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So,
Yeah.
tell us something about your growing up years, because for the benefit of our audience tonight, for all the domestic workers or for those viewers watching us tonight, how is life in Slovakia? Because I myself, I haven't been to Slovakia. So if we would want to go to your place, where would you want us to show around? What is life in Slovakia in short?
Yeah, good question. And probably asking about another country is easier if you're going into it as a foreigner, whereas if you've grown up in that country and that's sort of all you've seen or all you've experienced in your childhood, it's a bit difficult to describe to others. But yeah, I mean, Slovakia. I mean, it's a small country, 5 million people. The capital is 500,000 people, so very small for a capital city. I mean, it's in Europe. It's in Central to Eastern Europe, so it's a developed country, even though not all parts of Slovakia are fully developed. And yeah, it's not a fast-paced life. Nothing compared to Hong Kong or Singapore or London. It's quite a slow life for it being a capital city, which is quite nice, especially during the childhood years. Everything is in your proximity, which means you get to see your friend after school, which I assume is much harder to do in a big city, where things are just a bit further away. And there's a lot of beautiful nature around, which I would recommend everyone to visit if they can, and if they ever get a chance to go to Slovakia. Definitely let me know if you get a chance to go to Slovakia, and I will give you all the tips.
Yeah, is it far from Hong Kong to your country? How far is it? Is there a direct flight if you want to visit Slovakia?
Yeah, there's. I don't think there's a direct flight to Slovakia, but there's a direct flight to Vienna, which is in Austria, which is the bordering capital city to Bratislava. And from there, it's only 40 minutes by car. So actually, they're the two closest capital cities in the world, 40-minute drive apart, Vienna and Bratislava.
And then you have a sibling, or you're the only?
I have a younger sister. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Also in Singapore now, or still in Slovakia with your parents?
She's in London, so she went to university in London, and she decided to stay there for her job, and she's currently working there, hustling hard.
Oh, there's so many viewers right now watching us. They're saying hi to you. Good evening. So we have Elle, Marites, Christine, Isel. There are so many students watching us. Joffrey, Precious, Catherine, Honey, Georgie, Anne. Who else? Jane is watching. Lady Morgana is watching. Love Yourself. Okay, what a unique name. Floor is watching, and Moshi is watching. How young are you when you move out from your country? Did you move out because of studying or something else?
Yeah, so the initial move that I made from Slovakia was to pursue my degree, so to go to university. So that was when I was 18, and I moved from Slovakia to the UK to do my bachelor's in law. And that's quite an easy move, right? Because London and Bratislava, it's an hour flight apart, 1 hour time zone difference. And you always feel like you're still in the proximity of your family, because if any emergency arises, you can get on a flight and be home, in the next day or within the same day, really. I think the bigger move was then going to Hong Kong for my master's, which was, 16-hour flight away, very different time zone, and suddenly, a completely different continent where you didn't really know anyone or had no family or relatives or friends.
How hard for you, because when you move out, you're 18 years old, full of dreams, full of goals, different things that coming into your mind because of for the sake of education. Because if we could relate it to our OFWs watching, the migrant domestic workers, they also have this kind of feelings when they leave their home country. They sacrifice their own happiness, their family, for the sake of their career or future. But in your case, it's all about education. When you were young, full of energy, full of drive, what uh, comes to your mind during those time? What sacrifices have you had?
Yeah, I mean, to compare my sacrifice to the sacrifice that domestic workers are making is very unfair because they're making a much bigger sacrifice than I can probably ever imagine making in my lifetime. So all credit goes to them. My sacrifice is the sacrifice of luxury, of having the options to pursue a degree abroad. So as much as it's a sacrifice in that you don't get to see your family as much, it's also an opportunity to learn something new and to make friendships from all around the world, to meet really interesting people. And so you're never really alone when you're at university because that whole experience is made to be very communal. And I guess in the same way, that's what you're trying to create with your program, right? I mean, people are moving from all over Asia, from the Philippines to Hong Kong to pursue a job just so they can, make a bit more money, send money back home. And you're creating this experience of community by people getting to attend classes on Sundays or during their day off and meet other domestic workers and other people in different fields.
Yeah. And then when you were studying law at in London, the University of Warwick, how is it? How in terms of being a student, when I was a student at my generation, probably it might be different to your generation right now. The time that I had my undergraduate, my unis, I am the type of student who's very competitive and more focused on books, mostly on readings. At your generation, how's the difference? More on social skills, sports,
Yeah, good question. I think unless you're doing a field that's very specialized like medicine, there's often a big disconnect between your studies and the real world. And actually, a lot of what you study isn't applicable to the job you do after you graduate. And it's much more about employers testing your aptitudes to learn and to be able to apply yourself. And so actually a lot of my university time was spent a bit more on socializing and making connections and making friendships that I'm fortunate have lasted me until to this day. And they're, some people I call my best friends. So it was a bit more about that. Obviously, there's the academic element of it as well.
yeah.
But I think the University of Warwick is good in that it tries to make sure that you're ready for the real world. So it was all about going for interviews, making sure you're in front of employers, making sure you're not coming out of university without a job.
Yeah.
So
And once, how many years you've stayed in Warwick before you moved to Hong Kong U?
so yeah, I did a three-year bachelor degree, and then straight after that I went to HKU. Yeah.
Why HKU? There are different universities. Why Hong Kong U?
Mm.
And probably it would be your first time, right? It was your first time during those time in Hong Kong or
Yeah,
in Asia in particular.
it was my first time in Asia actually. Yeah. Why HKU? Good question. I think I wanted to go as far as possible
Mhm.
where English was still the primary language, and so I
Yeah.
could still do university degree there and get
Yeah.
around and have experiences with people. And HKU had a good reputation as a law faculty, and so yeah, I wanted to experience something very different.
Okay. When you were in Hong Kong U, what are the things that you remember?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So what made a huge impression on me at HKU was again just how international the university was, despite being so far away from Europe. And there was a lot of students from Europe there. So you never really escape your home
Yeah.
country or your home continent, right? There's people scattered
Uh,
all around the world, which is nice. What made an impression? I mean, Hong Kong was going through a very interesting time that year. It was going through the Umbrella Revolution. So to be a an onlooker in that and just seeing, how peaceful the protests could be, how clean people were despite them protesting, and how, yeah, just what an interesting dynamic that was. That was a great experience. And then just the friendships, meeting people like you who are in very different fields but excelling in them and doing great things. Volunteering with your program was the highlight of my Sundays, and a big takeaway for me.
yeah.
So yeah.
Did you have difficulties during those time? Because again, most of our domestic workers here, they do experience this cultural differences. They could not adjust easily. Where did you experience that, and how did you cope up with this? Your classmates in particular, or people around Hong Kong, you were totally different backgrounds, totally different cultures. Any adjustment on your part?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I decided to go to a place like Hong Kong is to experience that, because I love the idea of just being a foreigner somewhere else and having to adapt and see how different people live and think. And so I really thrive in that sort of foreign environment. I think the major adjustment was more to do with Hong Kong itself as opposed to with culture, which is just the size of living. You're living in a shoebox, and
Okay.
it's just when you're a student on a student budget, you can really just afford a room somewhere. And so the lack of personal space, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers
Yeah.
can relate to, it can be quite challenging.
Yeah. So how about the memorable lesson that you have learned when you were at Hong Kong U? And then for sure you've traveled around Asia, right?
Mm.
What interesting places that you've been, or memorable any memories that you still recall up to this date?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. Hmm. I think I mean, the biggest learning for me was the fact that you can go anywhere in the world and start from scratch and build something up and sort of make yourself feel at home there, if you just go out and interact with people and put in the effort. Um, and then, at the end of the day, no matter how far you are, people still have the same sort of core values, the same sort of human needs, and it's very easy to connect with people on those, even if your culture and upbringing is different.
Yeah.
And yeah, in Asia in general, it just is such a diverse place. It was a great experience. The food
Yeah.
is amazing. The
How about your
people are.
friends here? Do you still meet your friends? Do you have still friends in Hong Kong, local?
I do. I have a few. I mean, the unfortunate thing with the LLM, with Masters of Law, is that a lot of the students were foreigners. So a lot of
Mm.
them have gone back to their respective countries. So I'm
Mhm.
still in close contact with them, whether that's in sort of Europe or in other parts of Asia. But there are still a few who are in Hong Kong, who I was actually hoping to see this week, but because of the current situation, all
Yeah.
travel plans have been canceled.
Yeah. And when was the last time you visited Hong Kong? It was
I
last
saw you last time. I saw you
last
last time
year, right?
I visited. So I think it was last year, probably a year ago. Yeah.
Okay. And then I hope I could visit you in Singapore once this outbreak is over.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the programs that you participated was for the program DWEP, or for the Domestic Workers Empowerment Program. And what made you decide to join that program during those years? That was way back in 2014, if I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, 2014. So I mean, a bit of context. My summer before Hong Kong was spent, as you said, in sort of 6 weeks in Tanzania in Africa, sort of volunteering there, and that really was a very formative experience for me. It really opened my eyes to sort of being of service to other people and engaging with different people, and just volunteering. And so, sort of when I met you and when you told me about what you were doing, I felt like it was an amazing opportunity to try and get involved in that. Also, domestic workers are such a huge part of Hong Kong's culture. And so, for me, as much as I was trying to contribute to those Sunday sessions, I was receiving much more. I was receiving the energy of the domestic workers, because you always come back really energized from them, because the energy levels are just so high in the room. You learn a bit more about the culture, the various cultures, where the domestic workers come from, but also the way that Hong Kong's economy works and thrives on domestic workers.
Uh-uh. And then during those time, uh, we have so many programs. Okay, to test your memory.
Ooh,
Okay, okay.
a
Uh,
long time ago. It was a long time ago.
yeah, 6 years ago. 6 years ago. Can you recall any
Mm.
students of DWEP way back then?
I can recall. So participants, domestic workers.
Yes, yes, the
Yeah,
students that we have
I
had.
recall. I recall Baby Joy. She was
Okay.
one of the domestic workers that I sort of engaged with a lot because she was having some legal trouble during her stay, and we were trying to help her out a little bit. And then a few other names that spring to mind are Catherine and Susan.
Ooh, you still remember some
Yeah.
of okay. At
But I
least
mean, the rooms were so massive even back then. So
yeah.
the audience engagement and participation was great.
Yes. And how about specific programs? Any specific programs that we've had that you still recall? There are
Yeah,
different programs during those time, right?
yeah. So I recall there was like a film screening of a Filipino movie, which was
Okay.
great. Um, then, there was a lot of health talks that you gave. So there was a whole sort of health series that you led. And that's probably as far as my memory serves me at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah. But anyway, it's okay. I hope that you could come back and then you could visit
Yeah, I love it.
one
I
of
love
these days once this pandemic is over. What lessons have you learned? Particularly, you mentioned to me before that in your country, or in particular in areas where you live before, that you don't see domestic workers, and it's your first time in Hong Kong to be with the domestic workers on a Saturday or Sunday during those time. And what have you learned from them specifically? Because you've interviewed Baby Joy, you've mentioned, and you met Catherine or you met Susan. What stories or lesson that you have learned from these women?
Yeah, I mean, it's always the lesson of sacrifice, right? And putting other people in front of yourself, especially, I mean, mainly is your family, whether that's your kids or other members of your family. It's a lot of lessons around resilience, to be away from family for so long and really to be working 24/7 for 6 days a week. I don't think many people in the world experience that or know how difficult that must be. And this is what they're doing. They're giving up their whole life, their time to be just to sacrifice themselves and to be able to contribute to their families back at home. So I mean, that's why I always come back so energized because these are people who are tougher than I am, who are more motivated than I am, and being around people like that, it makes you a bit tougher and more motivated as well.
Yeah. And now, particularly, you are a lawyer now. Okay. What particular issue or any in particular issue that you would want to contribute or address regarding these migrant workers?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that we got into a little bit when I was in Hong Kong, but unfortunately had to leave. But we were back in one of my law classes, which was human rights in practice. Me and the other students and my professor, we worked with an organization that was putting together a manual for domestic workers to be able to use in case they have any legal claims from their time being domestic workers in Hong Kong and Singapore. But making sure that they can pursue those claims even when they go back home, so they're not forced to stay in a country where they're reliant on the host family, housing them, even if they have a claim with the host family, because that's a very bad dynamic to be in.
Mhm.
So being involved in some capacity and sort of helping workers with the human rights abuses that unfortunately still occur in this area
Mhm.
would be amazing. Unfortunately, I haven't engaged with it as much as I would want to since leaving Hong Kong, but it's something I'd love to get back into.
So after your Hong Kong U, where is your next destination? When you graduated in 20,
2015, yeah.
2015.
So I then went back to the UK. Well, actually, went back to Slovakia with no money because sort of you're a poor
Right?
student, you don't have a
Yes.
job.
Uh-uh.
But I had a job lined up, but I sort of deferred it to start in sort of 6 months time. So in December of that year, so I had 6 months to myself. And so what I did with that time is I spent 3 months in a film production company trying to earn some money, which was
Okay.
a really interesting experience. And then I spent 3 months traveling with my best friend around Southeast Asia to get to know the culture a little bit more.
Wow. And then finally you've been to Singapore. How come you moved from one country to Singapore? So what prompted you to be working in Singapore?
Yeah, so I started my sort of legal practice 4 years ago now, spending my first year in London, and then an opportunity came about to spend 6 months in a department in Singapore because the organization I work for has an office in Singapore. So I did that, really enjoyed it. Uh, did 6 months in Abu Dhabi, and then my training, which is a 2 year period, was over, and I had to decide whether to go back to London or to go back to Singapore because there was a job opportunity there. And I just really loved the region. I loved the city. I loved the people. So I
Mm.
decided to take the offer in Singapore, and
Yeah.
I've been for the last year and a half.
No, in Singapore, there are also plenty domestic workers
Yeah, correct.
in Singapore. How would you differentiate in terms of do they do like for example every Saturday and Sunday? Do they have this kind of programs like in Hong Kong U that we teach them, etc.? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Or they
yeah. I mean,
have.
to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure that they do. And if they don't, then it'd be an amazing thing to try and
Mm-mm,
get off the ground here.
mm-mm,
They still have usually Sundays off or one day a week off. So
mm-mm,
you do see a lot of them. Hanging around in big groups around the city, which is nice. And then, I mean, a lot of the families here, including the people I work with in my organization, have domestic workers, live with domestic workers. So not the same level of engagement and interaction I've had when I was in Hong Kong, but
mm-mm.
maybe I can remedy that
Yeah.
going forward.
Okay. You mentioned a while ago, I don't know if you would want to say expound on this, that you work in a British film production, something? You mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah. So
How was it? You didn't, how come you went in that direction?
yeah. I mean, so the film industry, the business side of the film industry was always a sort of a passion of mine. And
Mhm.
so an opportunity came about to join their legal team for a short period of time, the legal and business affairs department. And I jumped at that opportunity. And the biggest film production company in the UK. They've done movies like Notting Hill or Les Miserables. Um, so
Oh,
yeah, just an amazing organization,
mm,
and get a bit of an insight into the filmmaking process and the way people think, and just engage with that industry. It was very rewarding. Yeah.
okay. So for sure you enjoyed it because you'll be with the celebrities. You met Julia Roberts or who are the celebrities that you have
Well,
encountered?
I mean, yeah, I'll caveat this with saying that I haven't had personal interactions with these celebrities, but
Okay.
I have seen and been in the same sort of events and
Mm,
premieres with people like Zac Efron or Tom Hardy.
mm,
I'm trying to think who else I've seen. Oh, Renee Zellweger, because it was the time that they were making the new Bridget Jones movie.
okay.
So she was in the office. Sacha Baron Cohen was in the office a few times. So yeah.
Oh. But within this time, uh, are you do you still go back to your home country to meet your parents? Or you keep on traveling from one place to the other? Because from Hong Kong, from London to Singapore to Abu Dhabi, uh, your parents, how do you communicate with them?
Yeah, I
Or you
mean,
meet them how many times you go back to your home country?
yeah. So I do go back. I do go back, and it is very important for me to stay in touch with family and have a strong relationship with them. So I go back as much as I can. When I'm in this part of the world, that's probably around 2 times a year maximum. Around this time, it's less because of what's going on. But I call them, I mean, the advantages of modern technology being used the way it's supposed to be used, to connect people as opposed to isolate people. So I call them every week at least. Same with my sister. And yeah, we do stay in touch, and it's
Yeah.
important for us.
Okay. And then now that you're in Singapore, how's life in Singapore? How do you cope up? Particularly now, you're not a student anymore. How do you manage the level of stress that you experience, particularly working in a law firm or in the field? How stressful it is and how do you cope up? Do you still go to the gym or do you go to swimming, do exercise?
Yeah, good question. And maybe if you saw this part of my body, you'd see that I haven't been to the gym in a while uh, because of the job, but also because in the past 2 months, gyms have been closed in Singapore because of the
Mm.
situation. Um, it's a good question, Mike, and I think it's something that I'm still learning. How to cope with stress. And if I figured out a solution, I'd probably quit my job and write a
Yeah.
book about it. I think it's a process for everyone that you just get better at with time and experience. Meditation, I think, can help. Exercise can help. I think what doesn't help with the situation is that you're always in the same space. So the boundaries of work and life are very blurred. And actually, we're complaining that now we're all confined to the same space. Domestic workers have always worked in that environment, right? Like they're always at work. The place they live in
Yeah.
is their place of work.
Yeah.
We can probably learn a lot from their coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
more so than from our own coping mechanisms.
Yeah. And then can I would want to ask something related to your work. Any stressful or any interesting case or mind challenging case that you have handled uh, for the past how many years? 5 years or so? Yeah.
4 years, yeah. There's a lot of confidentiality around the cases we deal with, but there have been, weeks where you sort of don't leave the office, or you. So the office in London actually had sort of sleeping pods. So
Mm-mm.
you would work till 5, 6 a.m., go downstairs, take a 3 hour nap, shower, go back upstairs, and it's another work day. And I think when you have, two or three of those in a row,
Mm-mm.
that's when you sort of start feeling
Yeah.
really down, really low energy. That's when the job gets difficult.
So what is next after Singapore? Are you planning to go to other countries or move out? Because how many years you've stayed in Hong Kong? So around 2 years in Hong Kong, right?
Hong Kong was only a year, only
A
1 year,
year, a year in Hong Kong, and then Abu Dhabi, how many years?
only half a year in Abu Dhabi.
And then 4 years. I think this is the longest one in Singapore, right?
Singapore is coming up to 2 years. Yeah,
2 years. Okay.
yeah.
So after Singapore, what's the next destination?
I don't know. I do think that as I get older, it'll be somewhere potentially closer to family. Because if I do have kids at one point, I want to make sure they're brought up with their grandparents around. I don't want them to just communicate through Zoom or
Yeah.
Skype.
By the way, you're turning something.
I'm
Turning
27.
27 because
Yeah,
it's your birthday soon, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because the three of us we celebrate same birthday month with another friend of ours,
yeah,
Emil, which I
yeah.
asked him to guest next time. He said
Yeah,
yes.
he'll be a much better guest than me. Much more charming guy.
Yeah, I asked him. I called him 2 days ago for his birthday, and then he told me yes, he would love to guest. I think he's in Copenhagen now, in Denmark.
Copenhagen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's also a lawyer for the viewers out there. He's also a lawyer, and he studied Hong Kong U at and Harvard, right? He went to Harvard after.
Harvard.
Yeah, but anyway, if you are not in the law field, what career or profession should you have become if you're not a lawyer?
Yeah, I love to switch places with you because growing up, my dream was always to be a doctor and to
Really? You want to be a
pursue,
doctor? Okay. What
pursue the field of
specific
medicine.
field? No, what specific field of medicine that you would
I
want?
wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see. Okay. It's not too late. You're still 27, still young. So,
yeah, but the path of a doctor is a huge sacrifice, right? Like the amount of studying you have to do and the amount of time it takes for you to actually be able to get a job. It's
mhm.
just yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be difficult to make the transition now.
Okay. So, in terms of future plans, anything that comes to mind? Your future plans? For sure, the mothers out there, the parents out there watching us tonight, they want their kids to be like you, to be like someone, to be someone who's independent, goes to different countries, making their own way at a very young age. Because when I left my home country, I'm already 30 plus, and I'm scared. Okay, but in your case, at 18, moving from one country to the other country and having all these sacrifices and missing their parents, it seems that it's so easy for you. Okay, so for you, any future plans?
Yeah, I mean, just to that point, I think a lot of credit, probably all of the credit, has to go to my family and my parents, because I mean they decided to invest in my education in Slovakia, bring me up in an English speaking system, and actually language is what creates these barriers. And so if you speak English, which is a language that is spoken predominantly around the world, that opens up borders very easily. But in terms of next steps, I have no idea. I mean, I'd love to do something where I'm giving back a little bit more. I think a lot of my sense of purpose comes when I can help other people more directly. And I know they say that in the legal field you can do that, but I think you see the impact of that a bit less, especially in a large corporate law firm. So yeah, I'm open to anything.
You're still young for sure. You could go to different places and then you could climb the stairs going
Yeah,
up.
I'm getting older though, Mike. I'm getting older.
27, come on. Okay. And for sure, there are lots of women, parents watching us tonight. For all the parents and children watching us tonight, what message would you want to share or to all these domestic workers watching us tonight? Not just domestic workers, for all the parents out there. Any parting words that you would want to share?
Um, Yeah, I mean, one is just sort of, be kind to one another and be kind to yourselves, especially now in these very difficult circumstances. I think it's easy to be hard on yourself and feel like you're not productive, you're not motivated, things aren't going the way you've imagined them to go. But actually, like everyone is in this situation, be kind to yourself, cut yourself some slack. To the parents, to the domestic workers, I mean, keep being, this amazing source of energy and positivity that you are.
Mhm.
To the parents, invest in your kids, invest in their education. It's the best thing you can give them. It's better than any flat or car or anything like that. It's sort of, you give them the tools to acquire all these things themselves, as opposed to giving it to them on a silver platter. Um, so yeah, I mean, just be kind, I guess.
Yeah, be kind. Yeah, that's good. When was the last time you went home?
I went home for Christmas, so 6 months ago.
6 months ago. And how's your parents? How's your dad? All good?
They're good. They're good.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I should have
yeah.
sent an email to him because the last time I saw him was when he visited Hong Kong. That was 2015, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're
Mhm.
doing well. I mean, they're healthier than I am. They're fitter than I am. They have more time, which is great. They have each other during lockdown, which is great.
Did
So I
he?
think they're
Yeah. Did he visited you last? Did you visited you in Singapore?
they
That's it.
visited me in Singapore 3 years ago for one Christmas. It was really
Uh-uh.
nice. But they haven't visited since. But I think they want to. They were actually planning to visit in April, but they
Mm-mm.
couldn't because of this outbreak. They had a trip planned.
Or any message to your parents?
I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I really do appreciate it.
I would send the link to your dad, so he would be happy.
Please stop.
But anyway, let me. There are some questions from our viewers. Okay, let me read some of the questions. I think because this is far away from home, they could ask questions, any questions
Yeah.
that, no filter. Okay, the first question: are you still single? That's the first question. It's not even. Yeah. What's the answer? Is are you still
I,
single?
I am still single. I think that's the downside of moving around so much, is that it's maybe difficult to create roots somewhere. So I am, yes, I'm still single.
Okay.
If you know of any eligible ladies, direct them to Mike. And he'll pass on,
We could send an
he'll
email
pass
to
on
your.
the contact details.
Okay. Which among the countries in Asia that you like best?
Very good question. I mean, they're each special in their own way, but I think for my travels, I was very surprised about Myanmar and sort of still how untouched it was. So I spent some time in Bagan,
Mm-mm.
and it was just a beautiful place with amazing temples, lovely people. So yeah, if you have a chance to go to Myanmar, particularly to Bagan, recommend it.
Yeah. Catherine and Susan say hi to you. Maybe
Oh, hi.
they're watching right now. Catherine Lumbang and Susan are watching.
Oh,
And
that's great.
anyway, another question is uh where was the question? If okay, this one. Would you I don't know if you would want to answer this. Would you date a lady twice your age? The questions right now. I don't know. Okay.
A
This is
lot of dating questions.
no, I don't know. It's kind of awkward to ask, but well,
I mean, obviously like age is never a factor. I think it would probably be more difficult just in sort of aligning your timelines in terms of when you want to have a family, and sort of administrative difficulties could get in the way. But I would never, yeah, I would never look at age
age.
as a criteria.
And then how many kids you would want in the future?
I'd love to have two kids, a boy and a girl.
See, I told you
Slash,
the questions are totally different. Okay. And another question, if you want to study again, what program or what course or degree would you want to study? Except medicine.
that's a great question. I think I would do an MBA, so a Master in Business Administration.
Oh,
I think it's a degree that prepares you for sort of a lot of different roles that you can do, and it's a well regarded degree as well. So yeah, probably an MBA.
and then probably this one. You visited Hong Kong you before. So probably she's referring to the last time you visited. And then you smell so good. May we know your perfume?
I'm not sure. I'm not. I don't remember what I was wearing in Hong Kong. I mean, you can't smell me now, but
What do you use for your perfume? What scent you use?
I use actually. Let me get the bottle.
Okay. Oh, ayan, yung mga nagtatanong ng
The
perfume.
great perfume. It's Clive Christian
Okay.
72. It's a very nice smell.
Okay. So
Highly
that's the
recommended.
perfume. Okay. And then, what qualities you would wanna have for your ideal girl? What qualities?
I mean, I think
I
you want
think Emil
you
will
want
not guess the if the yeah.
priority, right? There's a
Uh-uh.
priority list. I think kind has to be very kind. Has to have a good heart. Wants to want to have kids, and be a mother. But then also just having a sense of humor, and being a good friend, really, to me and to the kids.
Okay. But anyway, thank you so much for guesting. We didn't expect those questions. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't expect those questions. But anyway, thank you so much for guesting our
Thank you.
YouTube channel. For our viewers, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And also, advance happy birthday on your
Thank
20
you.
on 27, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
hope to see you again soon. Not this kind of technology,
yeah.
but meaning physically present. I probably I'll visit you in Singapore, or you can visit Hong Kong, or we could visit Emil, because it would be lovelier if the three of us would meet
Yeah.
again.
Absolutely. I hope to see a lot of the domestic workers soon as well
Yeah.
if I do come to Hong Kong.
Yes.
During
Anything that you would want to add, or anything that you would want to say before we end tonight?
No, I think just to thank you for dialing in, and really like just to hammer the point home. The domestic workers you work with, Mike, and domestic workers that are listening, you are a massive inspiration. Never forget that your sacrifice is appreciated by your families and by your employers. And just keep being strong and resilient, and full of energy. It's lovely to engage with you and to speak to you.
Okay, so once again, sa ating mga kababayan, it's not about being away from our family. It's about how we communicate with them. Because of the technology nowadays, we have the internet, we have Skype, etc. We have Facebook. We could communicate anytime we want. The question is, sometimes, are we the one who would need to reach out, or your kids would want to reach out? Uh, when was the last time na sinabi nyo sa inyong mga kamag-anak or kapamilya na I love you? When was the last time na sinabi ninyo na mag-ingat sila, or sinabihan kayo mag-ingat kayo? it's not too late. So probably after this episode, you could reach out to your family back home, particularly in this kind of situation. Always stay positive, stay healthy, and be safe, everyone. So again, good night, and maraming salamat, Jacob. Thank you so much. I didn't ask you if you could speak in Filipino. Have you learned any Filipino words? No.
Unfortunately, not. Next time, for next
Okay.
time.
Yes. Anyway, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Have a great night. Have a great weekend, everyone. And see you sa ating susunod na YouTube live stream. Thank you so much, Jacob, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much.